But yeah, today I'm going to be talking about community-driven innovation, advancing accessible gaming through open source. So what does that really long title mean here? I'm going to do a little bit of intro to the nonprofit that I work for, what we do in adaptive gaming, and then give 3 ways that you can make gaming more accessible. So I know for some of you, it's not going to be new information, but for the folks that maybe it's their first symposium, or recently you got some adaptive gaming gear, or you haven't even tried adaptive gaming gear before, give you a little bit of an overview of what's out there and what's available. So yeah, I'm Tyler. I'm the gaming accessibility lead at Makers Making Change. I have a background in mechanical engineering, and I'm out here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Josie also works really close with me on the gaming work, also has a background in mechanical engineering and a lot of working with the Stan Cassidy Center out in Fredericton, actually working in their adaptive gaming program directly with patients. So our nonprofit is called Neil Squire Society, has a bunch of different programs underneath it. So the Neil Squire Society started with Neil himself here, who was in a car accident and had injury that caused him to be paralyzed from the neck down. And he had a lot of difficulty, speaking and communicating. So him and his relative, Bill Cameron, developed one of the first ever sip and puff devices. So there's a photo of that there. So the straw going into Neil's mouth. He would breathe in and out in Morse code, and then it would type out on the Apple IIe computer what he was communicating. So really early version of AAC technology and sip and puff technology that, as we all are familiar today, is really important. And yeah, so this was developed in Vancouver. After Neil passed away in 1984, so we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year of our nonprofit. We started a program to enable Canadians with disabilities through passion, technology, knowledge, and power. So there's a bunch of different programs that we have here, like digital literacy, employment, assistive technology. So those programs have been around since really the conception of it. We have quite a large employment program surrounding that, and then occupational therapists and assistive technology specialists that focus on the digital literacy side and getting people assistive technology. So I won't dive into those programs too much, but just for awareness that they're out there. What I will focus on is the kind of innovation section there at the top. So what we do in the innovation section is we have a program called Makers Making Change. What we do here is we connect people with disabilities who need low-cost assistive tech to people who are in the maker community or have the skills to build the assistive devices. The volunteer only pays the material costs of those devices, and so the maker gets reimbursed for the supplies. So that process, we have an online library of, I think right now, around 215-ish devices from a variety of different things. Like here, I got some to demo here. I got like what's our pinball device. So this can come in a bunch of different sizes. For pediatric patients specifically, we have like a really small version of this. So different grip on a pen, all the way to things like this, which is like a sip and puff mouth joystick. This is our lip sync device. So kind of low tech all the way to high tech. And this is so you got the joystick here and then a sip and puff. So this works as a game controller and as a mouth mouse as well too, and a keyboard. So all the devices that we build are all open source. So that means that that maker can download all of the files, get step-by-step instructions on how to build them, know kind of why we designed it, all the kind of background info, best practices for building it. We have quite strong documentation around actually building these technologies, and what this results in is about 94% financial savings compared to commercial devices. So I know that Interact Switch on the right side there, that's a 3D printed one that we make. That one ends up being somewhere in between $3 and $5, or depending on where you're shipping the parts to and all those kind of things as well. But big significant cost barriers very significant for people with disabilities. So making these one, lower cost, but also two, customizable. So all the actual computer CAD files and the files to make things bigger, smaller on that Interact Switch. You can put a smiley face on it, logo, whatever that is. The maker is able to do. And I had a question yesterday, actually, in Caitlin's presentation around like, you know, uh, kind of STEM education, or people with disabilities in the hospital center actually building this technology. I thought that was really a great question, because that's often something that people don't know about our program. But a lot of the devices are actually built by students. So we have funding from the Canadian government to go into schools in Canada, bring all the different supplies and 3D prints and all that to them. They walk through that step-by-step guide with us, and then we have class of 30 students. We get 30 assistive switches that can go to the community for free. And a lot of this work has actually been focused on working with people with disabilities and working with youth with disabilities, like in hospital centers, but also just in schools as well too. The Stan Cassidy Center, actually, in Fredericton, the one that Josie actually used to work for, got a grant recently to work with their patients specifically to actually build our devices, and they had like kind of a whole research study that went through there. So yeah, some good kind of best practices around that. If people are interested, feel free to email me, and we can chat about that and get you directed to the right people. So before we jump into the gaming stuff here, I also just wanted to let you all know about the Hacking for the Holidays program. So this is a yearly program that we have where we adapt various toys, and then those go to the community during the holiday season. So last year and this year, last year we developed over 2,000 switches and toys out to different Canadians. This year goal is still 2,000. We'll do a bunch of different events across the different provinces for fundraising. So somewhat gaming adjacent, kind of under that umbrella of play. I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of this. If you're a center in Canada looking for different adapted toys, definitely get connected with us for Hacking for the Holidays. Okay, so that's kind of like our program, the layout, all that kind of stuff. Under the Makers Making Change umbrella, we have the STEM side, the regular maker model, people requesting devices, and then the third piece is the accessible gaming program. So we often use this acronym Game Accessibility Made for Everyone. That's kind of like the main kind of thesis of the work that we do. So we kind of have within the accessible gaming program, we work to make assistive technology for gaming. So taking our regular R&D process, but looking through the lens of gaming, so different joysticks and switches and controller modifications, really answering that question of where do I start in gaming. That's a question that we got oftentimes prior to this program, and we'd have to do kind of a bunch of work to pull together resources and all these things. But now we have a very foundational program where we can help either game devs, community leads, clinicians, anyone kind of get into this space. So breaking that down a little bit more, we'll start off with the direct gamer side. So I'll go through all of them. So we got the direct gamer side, creating accessible gaming spaces, working with the game industry and creating that low-cost hardware. So on the gamer side, if a center has someone that is looking to do adaptive gaming, but they don't have the facilities for it, or if someone just finds our website and wants to reach out about adaptive gaming, we do have support. Josie and I can meet with them virtually, or if they're local in one of our areas, meet with them, figure out kind of what the starting places is, and really it's a case-to-case basis on where does that go from there, right? Can we support them with that technology? Where are they at? Is there technology that can serve them? That kind of thing. So we do that quite a bit within our program, Josie and I. And then on the low-cost hardware side, the two main areas that we focus on mainly is alternative inputs. So again, sip and puff, joysticks, switches, and modified controllers that we're 3D printing add-ons to it. Actually, in Caitlin's presentation, she showed the new thumbstick toppers that they came out with. So we're able to work with them on that too, and provide support and feedback on those, and they're great. A couple other low-cost hardware things that we do: mounting and connectivity hubs. So we have a couple different hubs that if you don't want to, or you don't have a need to go kind of on the full Xbox adaptive controller side or Sony Access controller side, and you're just looking for PC or mobile access, we have a Forest up here with 4 assistive switch ports, and then a joystick port as well that can do both mouse mode, mouse and keyboard mode, and gaming mode. So you can swap between those modes. So the idea is someone has one gaming setup that they're using, and then they work their 9 to 5 job using that same setup for digital access, and then like a lot of us, 5 p.m. hits, they can hit that button, flip over, and get into gaming. Joysticks, I guess I focus on a little bit here just because there's been such a big need for them in Canada. And late last year, we got a grant from the Canadian government to develop 5 different adaptive joysticks. So we have a couple other ones on our website now and still continuing this. I started kind of exploring this gaming work like in late 2020. That was the biggest barrier that we experienced, right? Like we could get a bunch of assistive switches for someone and controls and all those things, but they couldn't move in the game, right? If they needed a joystick, there wasn't a lot of options out there. In Canada, at least, you're looking at like $300-ish for something like a joystick. So all the ones on the photo here, somewhere around $30-40 worth of parts. So that's what they'd be paying. Yeah, see, under $50. And we have a bunch of different range of toppers as well too. That again can be sized for pediatric patients or patients that have specific needs. So under the Accessible Gaming Spaces umbrella, we have a program called Game Checkpoints. So this is by far probably the largest adaptive gaming kind of endeavor that we do and what I'm supporting day to day. So when we launched this program in early 2023, we had funding for 4 initial game checkpoint centers. So what that looks like is we would go into the center or work with the center to get a range of different adaptive gaming gear. So you have like a whole selection of gear. It ends up being around like $10,000 as like kind of a base setup. So we give them about $10,000 worth of gear. I go there, train them on how to use it. We do kind of like an open house. We work with patients, all those kind of different things, and then the center is able to use that gear how they see fit. They're trained. We trust their expertise on that. So we're just then kind of take a step back in the background to support however we can. So we have as part of that we have different quarterly meetings where we meet with the different centers. Can I give them an update on what's changed in the landscape? Because we know busy folks, busy people. It's our responsibility to kind of keep track of all the gaming news that comes up. So when Caitlin released 5 different new updates in one day a couple of weeks ago, when we have our quarterly meeting next week, I'm going to update them on all of that and how they can utilize it with their patients. And then also they have the opportunity to be able to connect with each other and try to prevent some of that siloing that can happen in clinical spaces in Canada. So we have a Discord as well where they can talk and chat with each other as things come up throughout the year, which has been very active and very cool to see kind of them working together to advance this space. And again, it isn't just clinical centers, libraries, community centers, other nonprofits, and game developers and stuff. We work with this in the program. Primarily today, it's mainly clinical spaces just due to the the need and the connections that we have. But we do have 2 centers that are non-clinical spaces. One's a game industry space in Eidos, Montreal, and the other one is at an education space in Manitoba. So I don't think I have to tell you all like why these spaces are important, but kind of the 2 main reasons why we want to start this work is that significance of gaming. All the work that we do, all the way to the devices. I mean, we don't start designing a device until someone requests something or there's a a new idea or a big need that we're identifying and hearing from our community. So everything's really community led, and that's really where this program came from. We had a bunch of clinicians that had questions about our population is asking for gaming more and more. We have like an old Xbox in the corner. I don't really know where to get started. I don't play games, all those kind of things. And we want to kind of like, recognize that significance of gaming that it has in a lot of people's lives today. It's the largest entertainment industry in the whole world. having equal access to art is really important, and connection to communities. It can decrease social isolation a ton. So we'll my big dream is having gaming as a standard offering in hospitals in Canada, the same way that we think about adaptive sports, right? If someone's a hockey player, they get an injury, there is a pretty defined path for them to maybe get into adaptive sports, and start that back up again. I want to see that for gaming, and the cost of gaming. So I mean, gaming is an expensive hobby on its own. Assistive technology is expensive on its own. You put those together, you're looking at about like $3,000 for an individual gaming setup. Even the product photo, like on the table here, there's the Nintendo Hori Flex controller. The product photo for that has one joystick and one switch, and that controller itself is like $250 in Canada. So you're looking at like minimum, but $1,000 just for the product photo there. Just because assistive technology is expensive, right? About $10,000 for one setup in space isn't something that hospitals can just sign up to do the next day. So having these resources and bringing that expertise in is where we fit in. So we have a couple online resources on our website under the adaptive gaming tab. These aren't reinventing the wheel or anything. These are kind of the if someone finds our website and they want to know kind of a 4-part series on everything in adaptive gaming, they can look at that. A lot of that links out to folks who have done this work already and done it way better than, like, it doesn't need to be redone again, like special effect, game access, and those type of folks as well. So that's kind of like introductory section. And all of the resources that we use for our game checkpoints program, so they get like these booklet training manuals, which basically mine and Josie's brain in like a book. They're kind of intended for like quick use during a session. So instead of looking at the controls in a game, or kind of remembering how the different systems might work, and Googling those during a session can increase session times. We try to make these booklets QR code focused, really quick bullet points, so a clinician during a session could pull these up, look through them, and figure out what they need. So in the links that I sent, I believe it's the third link there, there's a GitHub page that has all of these booklets. You can download them. There's a Word doc version, so if you want to take these, expand on them, make them your own, they're yours to do so. And then we also have like a intake questionnaire that's open source there. We have an Excel sheet with the initial material list that we start with the game checkpoint centers at. Kind of we propose that to them, and then add or subtract depending on what their needs are. What else do we have on there? We have a couple other template pages as well too, so a resource that you might find useful. And this is kind of the process that the clinicians would go through in a session. So they take someone's gaming goal. Anton here, for example, Anton visited the GF Strong Center in Vancouver a year before this photo was taken. His main, after stroke, his main want after returning home back in the community was to continue playing games with his friends, particularly shooter games. So at the time, they were able to only figure out that he was able to play racing games because he could use drive and like gas and brake in his one hand, and steering when he remapped the controls. Anton likes racing games, but didn't want to only play those. So we invited him back after they did the game checkpoint center, and kind of took all of his information in that intake session. This was kind of how he was playing before he plays. Oh, might not, but you can kind of see there where he's like balancing the controller on one hand, and then after about 5 to 10 minutes, he would fatigue after playing like this as well too. So we got a mounting arm, added a one-handed controller mount here. That's available on our website through the designer Akaki in Japan. So if anyone designs something that's open source too, we can post that on our website. And we're able to get a more ergonomic setup for him, and be able to use that 3D print to access the whole controller. So the video won't play here again, but basically you can see that little beige 3D print. So if he presses the button on this side, it'll press the button on the other side of the controller, and then over time we added the different kind of 3D prints for the whole controller, so you could access it fully one-handed. So in our first year of the Game Checkpoints program, over 200 gamers were served. So that's like initial intake sessions. So 200 initial intake sessions for the various centers. We now have 9 game checkpoints. So those other game checkpoints after the initial 4, we don't have direct funding to support those centers like internally. So like we don't have that bucket of money to provide the gear for. But since the need was so big, we worked with them locally to find local funding, find their specific funding, grant funding locally to them to be able to get that different setup. So there's lots of different ways that we can kind of intake these centers, and then on top of, so we have the 200 gamers sessions having their initial setup. After that, maybe they're returning and they're doing recreation centers or returning for follow-ups. After that, we had about 448 gamer sessions, giving feedback on the devices that we're developing as well too, which was something we didn't have before. And the game industry. So this is something that we're doing, studios like Eidos and Ubisoft and EA to really focus on the playtesting stage of developing a game. So there's a lot of really fantastic accessibility resources for players, who have disabilities around vision or hearing. But there is less so for players that are using assistive technology to game. Like slow motion mode is a really, really great example of that works really well. But I think that there's a lot more that game designers can work on and develop in the stage. So we're helping more players that are in leaving hospital scenarios or are able to provide feedback during playtesting, actually work with the studios and give their feedback. So we do the same game checkpoint training for them, but it's a little bit of a flip because they know gaming really well, but they don't know assistive technology. So training them on that and kind of how to work with the disability community. So here are some 3 ways to make gaming accessible. This is kind of normally the flow chart that we go through when we're working with clients. So starting either with the gaming platform or game that they're interested in, really oftentimes dictates what type of assistive technology can be used. So for example, if they're playing on PlayStation, we have a more limited supply of assistive technology versus PC or something like that. Then we'll kind of go through the different AT needed and connect those. Again, probably not new information for a lot of you. And then 3 ways, again, switch and alternative access, modified controllers, and software. Thinking about switch and alternative access, really what we're doing here is just taking the buttons on a controller, joysticks on a controller, or the mouse or the keyboard settings and translating that into, again, zip and puff devices, eye controls, buttons and joysticks, all those different pieces there. So again, I think the video won't play here, but bunch of different ways that you can set these up. This is an example on the laptop tray, but mounting these, on magic arms, RAM mounts, connected to someone's wheelchair, but potentially as well too. And actually getting these assistive switches and joysticks and different modifications to actually work with the systems, you have to use some type of switch interface. So again, depending on the system, you may pick different things, or for different features that they have, you may pick them. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but this Xbox adaptive controller, for example, by default works with phones, PCs, and Xboxes. But if you really wanted to use it on like a Nintendo Switch, for example, there's adapters and ways to make that happen as well too. So we can chat about that. The ones that we have on our website, any of the switch interfaces, if you go there and check it out, those ones only work on PC and mobile. So there's no direct console work with that. And then you have different other softwares that you can utilize as well too. Like Cephable is a really great resource software that we use. It's free for community centers, free for individuals. You can use voice control, facial expressions, and body gestures. So tilting your head left, opening your mouth, all those different things. Really fantastic tool. So yeah, utilizing those in conjunction with some of those other technologies can be great. The Nintendo HoriFlex actually has eye gaze features kind of built in. You can use it with the Tobii eye gaze as well too. We're coming out with an article about that I think about a week. So yeah, pretty neat. And then yeah, modify controllers. So there are commercial options out there for modify controllers, which are fantastic. Folks like Evil Controllers who go in and like solder buttons to it and extend joysticks and stuff as well too. There's also a plethora of 3D printed ones that you can find online, not just on our site as well too. Caleb Craft at the Controller Project does a really good job of kind of sourcing all of these things together. So definitely check out the Controller Project if you're looking for a bunch of different kind of more recent controller modifications that are out there. And again, you can see here from this photo that creativity on these ones are quite endless. Oftentimes these are designed specifically for one person in mind. Like if someone needs a certain button at a certain location, for example. But posting these open source, making the instructions for them, and having them online, you can see a wide use case for them. Most popular one would be this one-handed controller again that I showed before here too. So those ones are all quite popular and again have a wider range of use cases. And adapters here as well. So this is just a little table that I took out of our one of our game checkpoint booklets. But again, kind of showing the purpose of those quick guides. So if someone was in a session or prepping for a session with a client, they know they were playing on a certain console, they knew what controller they wanted to use, they can easily kind of look at the different adapter that they might want to use to make that happen. And then there'd be a QR code on the side with instructions on how to get that done. So these can be really useful for modified controllers. For example, like if this, I'll go back a little bit here, this 3D print in the middle, say that was only ever designed for the Xbox controller, but it works really well for a client, and you want to use it on the PlayStation, or you want to use it on the Nintendo Switch or whatever that is, adapters can be really useful for modified controllers. Mounting as well. Mounting is probably the hardest piece of work that we do in terms of actually developing mounting, just because a lot of the stuff that we do is 3D printing, so you got to think about strength and placement and all these different pieces. But kind of using 3D printing as an accessory to other mounting options for things that don't currently exist. Like on the bottom left there, I believe this is the Able Gamer solution that we help work with them on of a RAM ball mount for different controllers. So you can snap it on and then use it with a RAM mount solution, or just putting some Velcro on the bottom as well too on a couple other options. Mounting can be really important whether someone wants a controller up near their face or by their feet, or help reduce the fatigue of holding a controller. And then finally software. So something that we have less control over, but again, working with the game industry to expand upon a little bit. So you have the options of in-game settings. So there may be settings in the game more and more commonly that can help assist the assistive technology, or work with someone that assistive technology may not be an option for in this. So like vision, for example, where you make the good guys in blue, bad guys in red, items in yellow, that kind of thing. And let's see if this works here. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, slow motion mode again in The Last of Us. I promise this pauses before any gore or scary things. But you can see when Ellie gets close to the zombies there, it slows down. This can be a really useful option for assistive technology, because you might have a bunch of different assistive switches, a bunch of different, maybe two joysticks, and getting between them can be challenging. So that can be really useful. If you're looking for games accessibility, it's two really good resources for that. You got Can I Play That? Articles from game accessibility, game articles on game accessibility for disabled gamers. Great resource. And then the Family Gaming Network, where they have two different options. You can select specific features in the game that you're looking for, and it'll pull up a list of games that fit that criteria, or you can pick from a list of common features. So I think the Family Gaming Network is probably one of the most used resources that our game checkpoints utilize day to day. And kind of the work that we all do here is combining all of these things, right? That's the tricky part, and the part that takes a lot of time and kind of effort to sort out, right? So this photo is from Special Effect, one of their case studies here, gamer Josh. So just in this one photo alone, kind of all three of those are together here. You got 3D printed the mount for the controller, different assistive switches, a custom joystick that is being, all of this in Copilot with the Xbox Adaptive Controller. If they wanted to use this on the Nintendo Switch, they could use an adapter. And then if they needed, game accessibility settings, whether that's a screen reader or visual options in the game, they'd be able to, turn that on in that option there too. So yeah, something like this doesn't, happen the first session oftentimes, right? This is something that, over time will develop for the gamer as well too, whether they have a progressive disability or they want to play new games or new genres and stuff expanding in the future as well. So, it's kind of ever-changing landscape, and I think that is kind of what is really interesting about this work too, right? Digital access, when we think about, replacing a mouse and keyboard, there's only so many things that you can do with a mouse and keyboard on, digital platforms, right? Like you're trying to get left click, right click, kind of macros, that kind of thing. But with gaming, each game has its own specific experience that, someone is trying to have. So trying to, blend that assistive technology with the experience in gaming to make sure that the gamers feeling what the game is intending for them to feel, as well as, making sure that the game is not a workout unless it's intended to be, right? That something is, working for someone the way it should be.